Welcome to Verbal Pick Radio, where we give you a verbal image of life, and we are everyday people. Like to welcome you all to the show. Look, it's hard for me, but I've been advised, and I'm humble enough to take the advice of those who tells me, Verbal Pick Radio should refrain from making any outlandish or controversial remarks pertaining to the insurrection that took place in D.C. on the 6th of January 2021. Because something is getting ready to take place within this country, and I don't want to be seen as an instigator as far as the advice that was given to me. So I said, okay, in which I didn't feel like I was, especially after hearing the commentary of those that's on, let's say, such news outlets as Fox and some of the things that I've heard. But then it was brought to my attention, but they white, they can do that. And I said, well, wow, I'm a taxpayer citizen, wow, white privilege. And I thought, okay, look at how they did the Black Lives Matter protesters. Even Joe Biden had to come out and say something about it. Okay, I understand. So what I decided to do, right, for you all, right, I decided to read this book, right, and it'll be a part 1, 2, 3, and 4, but not all back-to-back days. But like today I'll do part 1, and next week might do part 2, or maybe 3 days from now part 2, and a week and a half part 3, and so forth, right? Y'all get what I'm saying? So you have to tune in to get more. But this book was written in 1726, right? By Defoe D, which is D-E-F-O-E-D. It's The Political History of the Devil, right? We're going to get into it because maybe this book will speak for itself, and it does speak for itself, but I believe that it's relevant for today's times and the times we're living in. Right here on Verbal Pick Radio. Chapter 1, being an introduction to the whole work. Right. I doubt not, but the title of this book will amuse some of my reading friends a little at first. They will make a pause, perhaps, as they do at a witch's prayer, and be sometime resolving whether they had best look into it or no, lest they should really raise the devil by reading his story. Children and old women have told themselves so many frightful things of the devil, and have formed ideas of him in their minds in so many horrible and monstrous shapes that really it were enough to fright the devil himself to meet himself in the dark, dressed up in the several figures which imaginations has formed for him in the minds of men. And as for themselves, I cannot think by any means that the devil would terrify them half so much if they were to converse face to face with him. It must certainly therefore be a most useful undertaking to give the true history of this tyrant of the air, this god of the world, this terror and aversion of mankind, which we call devil, to shew what he is and what he is not. Well, to show, they got S-H-E-W, to show what he is and what he is not, where he is and where he is not, when he is in us and when he is not. For I cannot doubt but that the devil is really and bona fide in a great many of our honest, weak-headed friends, when they themselves know nothing of the matter, nor is the work so difficult as some may imagine. The devil's history is not so hard to come at as it seems to be. His original and the first rise of his family is upon record, and as far his conduct, he has acted indeed in the dark, as to method in many things, but in general. As cunning as he is, he has been fool enough to expose himself in some of the most considerable transactions of his life, and has not shown himself a politician at all. Our old friend Machiavel, Matchiavel, outdid him in many things, and I may, in the process of this work, give an account of several of the sons of Adam and some societies too. We have outwitted the devil, nay, who have outsinned the devil, and that I think may be called out shooting him in his own bow. It may perhaps be expected of men in this history that since I seem inclined to speak favorably of Satan, to do him justice and to write his story impartially, I should take some pains to tell you what religion he is of. And even this part may not be so much a jest as at first sight you may take it to be, for Satan has something of religion in him. I assure you, nor is he such an unprofitable devil that way, as some may suppose him to be. For though, in reference to my brethren, I will not reckon him among the clergy, no, not so much as a gifted brother, yet I cannot deny, but that he often preaches, and if it be not profitable to his hearers, 'tis as much their fault as it is out of his design. It has indeed been suggested that he has taken orders, and that a certain pope, famous for being an extraordinary favorite of his, gave him both institution and induction. But as this is not upon record, and therefore we have no authentic document for the probation, I shall not affirm it for a truth, for I would not slander the devil. It is said also, and I am apt to believe it, that he was very familiar with the Holy Father, Pope Sylvester II, and some charge him with personating Pope Hildebrand on an extraordinary occasion, and himself sitting in the chair apostolic in a full congregation, and you may hear more of this hereafter. But as I do not meet with Pope Diabolus among the list in all Father Platina's Lives of the Popes, not Platina's was Platina, Lives of the Pope, so I am willing to leave it as I find it, but to speak to the point, and a nice point it is, acknowledge, namely what religion the devil is of, my answer will indeed be general, yet not at all ambiguous, for I love to speak positively and with undoubted evidence. He is a believer, and if in saying so it should follow that even the devil has more religion than some of our men of fame can at this time be charged with, I hope my Lord and his grace thee of and some of the upper class in the Red Hot Club will not wear the coat. However, well it may sit to their shapes or challenge the satire as if it were pointed at them, because 'tis due to them. In a word, whatever their lordship are, I can assure them that the devil is no infidel. 2. He fears God. We have such abundant evidence of this in sacred history that if I were not at present in common with a few others, talking to an infidel sort of gentleman with whom those remote things called scriptures are not allowed in evidence, I might say it was sufficient proof, but I doubt not in the process of this undertaking to shew that the devil really fears God, and that after another manner than ever be feared St. Francis or St. Dunstan. And if that be proved, as I take upon me to advance, I shall leave it to judgment. Who's the better Christian? The devil who believes and trembles, or our modern gentry of who believe neither God nor devil? Having thus brought the devil within the pale, I shall leave him among you for the present, not but that I may examine in its order who has the best claim to his brotherhood, the Papist or the Protestant, and among the latter the Lutherans or the Calvinists, and so descending to all the several denominations of churches, see who has less of the devil in them and who more, and whether less or more the devil has not a seat in every synagogue, a pew in every church, a place in every pulpit, and a vote in every synod, which is S-Y-N-O-D. Even from the Sanhedrin of the Jews to our friends at the Bull and Mount, and from the greatest to the least. It will, I confess, come very much within the compass of this part of my discourse, to give an account, or at least make an essay towards it, of the share the devil has had in the spreading religion in the world, and especially of dividing and subdividing opinions in religion, perhaps to eke it out and make it reach the Father, and also to show how far he is or has made himself a missionary of the famous clan, the Propaganda Phi. It is true we find him heartily employed in almost every corner of the world, and propagandum erarum, but that may require a history by itself. As to his propagating religion, 'tis a little hard indeed at first sight to charge the devil with propagating religion, that is to say, if we take it literally and in the gross. But if you take it as the Scots insisted to take the oath of fidelity, verses with an explanation, it is plain Satan has very often had a share in the method, if not in the design, of propagating the Christian faith. For example, I think I do no injury at all to the devil to say that he had a great hand in the old holy war, as it was ignorantly and enthusiastically called, stirring up the Christian princes and powers of Europe to run a madding after the Turks and Saracens and make war with those innocent people above 1,000 miles off, only because they entered into God's heritage when he had forsaken it, grazed upon his ground when he had fairly turned it into a common and laid it open for the next comer, spending their nation's treasures and embarking their kings and people. I say, in a war above 1,000 miles off, filling their heads with that religious madness called in those days holy zeal, to recover the terra sancta, the spatulars, Sepulchres, the spatulars of Christ and the saints, and as they called it falsely, the holy city, though true religion says it was the accused city and not worth spending one drop of blood for. Religious bubble was certainly of Satan, who, as he craftily drew them in. So like a true devil, he left them in the lurch when they came there, faced about to the Saracens, animated the immortal Saladin against them, and managed so dexterously that he left the bones of about 13 or 1400,000 Christians there as a trophy of his infernal politics. And after the Christians world had run a Lancentra terror, or in English a Sauntring, Sauntring. Y'all got to remember this was written in 1726. English a Sauntring, about 100 year, he dropped it to play another game less foolish, but 10 times wickeder than that which went before it, namely turning the crusades of the Christians one against another, and as Hudibras, Hudibras, said in another case, made them fight like mad or drunk, for a dame religion as for punk. Of this you have a complete account in the history of the Pope's decree against the Count de Toulouse, which is Thoulousc, and the wildness and aborigines with the crusaders and massacres which followed upon them, whereas to do the devil's politic some justice, he met with all the success he could desire. The zealots of that day executed his infernal orders most punctually, and planted religion in those countries in a glorious and triumphant manner. Upon the destruction of an infinite number of innocent people whose blood has fattened the soil for the growth of the Catholic faith in a manner very particular and to Satan's full satisfaction. I might, to complete this part of his history, give you the detail of his progress and these first steps of his alliance with Rome, and add a long list of massacres, wars, and expeditions in behalf of religion which he has had the honor to have a visible hand in, such as the Persian massacre, the Flemish war under the Duke Alva, Alva, the Smithfield fires and the Marian days in England, and the massacres in Ireland, all which would most massacres in Ireland, all which would most effective convince us that the devil has not been idle in his business, but I may meet with these again in my way. 'Tis enough while I am upon the generals only to mention them thus in a summary way. I say 'tis enough to prove that the devil has really been as much concerned as anybody in the methods taken by some people for propagating the Christian religion in the world. Some have rashly, and I had almost said maliciously, charged the devil with the great triumphs of his friends, the Spaniards in America, and would place the conquest of Mexico and Peru to the credit of his account. But I cannot join with them in this at all. I must say, I believe the devil was innocent of that matter. My reason is because Satan was never such a fool as to spend his time or his politics or embark his allies to conquer nations who were already his own. That would be Satan against Beelzebub, making war upon himself and at least doing nothing to the purpose. If they should charge him indeed with deluding Philip II of Spain into the preposterous attempt called the Armada, the Spanish invasion, I should indeed more readily join with them. But whether he did it weakly in hope, which was indeed not likely that it should succeed, or wickedly to destroy that great fleet of the Spaniards and draw them within the reach of his own dominions. The elements, this being a question which authors differ exceedingly about, I shall leave it to decide itself. But the greatest piece of management which we find the devil has concerned himself in of late in the matter of religion seems to be that of the mission into China, and here indeed Satan has acted his masterpiece. It was no doubt much for his service that the Chinese should have no insight into matters of religion. I mean that we call Christian, and therefore, though popery and the devil are not at so much variance as some may imagine, yet he did not think it safe to let the general system of Christianity be heard of among them in China. Hence, when the name of the Christian religion had but been received with some seeming approbation in the country of Japan, Satan immediately, as if alarmed at the thing and dreading what the consequence of it might be, armed the Japanese against it with such fury that they expelled it at once. It was much safer to his design when, if the story be not a fiction, he put that Dutch witchism into the mouths of the state's commanders when they came to Japan, who having more wit than to own themselves, Christians in such a place as that, when the question was put to them, answered negatively that they were not, but that they were of another religion called Hollanders. However, it seems the diligent Jesuits outwitted the devil in China, and, as I said above, overshot him in his own bow. For the mission being in danger by the devil, and the Chinese emperors joining together of being wholly expelled thereto, as they had been in Japan, they cunningly fell in with the ecclesiastics of the country, and joining the priestcraft of both religions together, they brought Jesus Christ and Confucius to be so reconcilable that the Chinese and the Roman idolatry appeared capable of a confederacy, of going on hand in hand together, and consequently of being very good friends. This was a masterpiece indeed, and, as they say, almost frightened Satan out of his wits. But he, being a ready manager, and particularly famous for serving himself of the rigorous of the priest fact about immediately to the mission, and making a virtue of necessity, with all possible alacrity, alacrity, with the proposal. So the Jesuits and he formed a hodgepodge of religion made up by popery and paganism, and calculated to leave the latter rather worse than they found it, binding the faith of Christ and the philosophy of morals of Confucius together, and formally christening them by the name of religion, by which means the politic interest of the mission was preserved. And yet Satan lost not 1 inch of ground with the Chinese, no, not by the planting the gospel itself, such as it was among them, nor has it been such disadvantage to him that this plan or scheme of a new model religion would not go down at Rome, and the Inquisition damned it with Baal book and candle distance of place served his new allies, the missionaries, in the stead of protection from the Inquisition, and then a rich present, well placed, found them freeing in the congregation itself. And were any nuncio with his imputed zeal pretended to take such a long voyage to oppose them, Satan took care to get him sent back, or inspired the million to move him off the premises by methods of their own. That is to say, being interpreted to murder him. Thus the mission has itself been truly devilish, and the devil has interested himself in the planting the Christian religion in China. The influence the devil has in the politics of mankind is another special part of his history, and would require, if it were possible, a very exact description. But here we shall necessarily be obliged to inquire so nicely into the arcana of Sir. But actually what they're saying is the devil stuck his nose in all affairs everywhere, even into their religions. But then when he's pointed out, then he'll say, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. Meaning he'll fluctuate from side to side. He'll cause the problem, right? Then deny the problem. He's playing both sides. But he played both sides so much to where he got lost, and now both sides starting to fight each other off of his, how should I say? Both sides are fighting each other off of the information and the energy and the direction that Satan set the course. But he couldn't keep them separated. So as time progressed, they started challenging each other. And now Satan has to run and hide before the people wise up and point him out. Right? And somebody is on the scene today who's making it plain who Satan is and calling him out. Hey, it is what it is. That's part one. We'll get to part two at a later date. Y'all remember this was written in 1726, so it was written in what they call the King's English back in the day. So I'm stumbling over some words, but I just wanted to get y'all to understand that this book, The Politics of the Devil, is fitting for this very times that we living in. And it was written in 1726. Verbal Pick Radio, we're out.